All right, back for another Friday Fitness Files. And I was supposed to record this last night, but I don't know. I just didn't, but here we are. And I'm going to talk about one that I mentioned last week, which was, man, I love this intro. It's getting me fired up. That's like a Saturday Night Live vibe to it. It's cool. Anyway, talk about something I was chatting about last week, which was a question I received from somebody that I used to coach and know back from CrossFit One Nation days. And it's really interesting. So topic is aging through CrossFit. But before we get to that, what was today's fitness? It's been a hard week. We changed up our programming at CrossFit Mafia. So we're doing like a little mix. We're kind of following main site, tweaking the workouts to sort of fit our layout and equipment. Following like a year behind, filling in the rest days with our ideas and changing days that we want to change. And it's been awesome, I think. I really liked it. The members have been pretty sore. I'm pretty sore. And that led to a bunch of conversations about, scaling and who should scale and when to scale and that kind of stuff. My dog is chewing something. Let me grab it. Okay, we're back to it. But anyway, programming at the gym has been really cool. Sore. But give me another idea for next Friday Fitness Files, which is just about scaling workouts. What is the RX? Who are we programming for? Blah, blah, blah. All that nerdy, dorky programming stuff we've probably talked about too much. Just shut up and get in the gym and adjust the workout to something that is challenging yet feasible. Okay, this was one I gave some thought. Did a little 2-hour max cals in the Echo bike this morning as part of the annual Big Fish Foundation fundraiser. They're doing a on-site fundraiser, which I won't be present for this year, but they run a bunch of remote challenges for, to raise funds for the nonprofit and also just participate in sports. So it's cool. But then I wanted to knock this thing out before the day gets rolling. But aging through CrossFit, I gave this one a lot of thought, and I came to the conclusion of I have no freaking clue. I don't have good advice on this one. I have advice that I can share, things I've been thinking about and trying to attempt with this, but I think I've done this one terribly, and maybe that's the thing to talk about here. So this might be maddeningly unhelpful and useful to no one, but why do I think I've done poorly at this one? Where I have done well is I've gotten back on the consistency of fitness, and I've talked about this before, and I like this analogy. Is like I've tried to turn my fitness into like the routine of brushing the teeth. Where is the easiest part of the day to put this habit in? What's the lowest barrier of entry to keep doing this habit as much as possible? And what are the elements of it that I like the most? Working out with others, taking class, specific movements, specific workout types that I can do more often to kind of get me back into building the habit. Those are some things I think I've done well. I've had a horrific time going through this and aging through CrossFit and suffering from comparing myself to something I used to be that I'm not anymore for a lot of reasons. Aging, taking time away, not training, competing like I used to. And that's been something that's been like my own personal boogeyman in terms of fitness. Spent a lot of time, taking time off from fitness because I got stuck in that mindset of like, what's the point? If I'm not going to compete to win the CrossFit Games, what the fuck is the point of doing this? And I know it's an easy answer, right? Like everyone's like, well, it keeps you healthy and blah, blah, blah. Shut up. If you're doing it as a hobby, what a waste. If you're not doing it for like excellence and dominance. That's definitely how I felt. I'm not saying that's the case of how I feel now, but that was something I suffered through for a while. And personally, something that annoys me, and I do respect this. I do realize as you get older, your body changes. You get more miles on the car, and different parts need changing and replacing or don't work as well as they used to. But I also find it fundamentally, I think you can accept that, and I think you can embrace that and be educated by that without turning it into just like this catch-all punt excuse. And that's why I feel like a lot of people, when people say to me, oh, wait till you're 40, how do you feel? I turned 39 this year. I feel really good, honestly. And in some ways, I feel the healthiest, and I mean that in the sense of like physically, mentally, attitudinally, romantically, emotionally, all the least. I feel the healthiest I have, in my life. People are like, wait till you're 45. And I fucking hate that because it's like, yes, I get that my body is going to work differently as I get older, but at the same time, like, why would you go into it with that mentality? One of the things I've always admired, buddy of mine, Josh Bridges, one of the things I've always admired about him is he, when we've talked about training, he just, he said this and he's just interested in seeing how far and how hard he can push his body consistently as he ages. And we joke about like, we'll do a workout together and, it'll have some like, one of the things we were joking about recently, it had some bike intervals in it. And we were just like on the bike and I was laughing because we were holding like a per 500 meter pace. And we were laughing afterwards of like, that was a challenging pace, but you look back at our competing days and it's like, that would have been a laughable pace. And I'm on the bike and I'm thinking, how the hell did I used to hold a 140, per 1,000 meters on the C2 bike for, throughout an entire workout. We were laughing about that. But what I admire about him is he's consistently somebody that I know that likes to do that, kind of continue to see how hard he can push himself, regardless of what he accomplished in the past. And I think that's like so cool and admirable. And I had talked about the post I saw the other day from that account, that kid, Tommy Gaines, is a lifter. And I really like his content. It's so goofy. Probably not for everybody, but he just like did this post that came out of nowhere because it was kind of a serious post and everything. And it's just like his content is usually like, see how many of this one drink I can drink until it makes me smile. That's sort of his bit. And it always ends with him making and eating like some like ridiculous meal. Anyway, he had this post that came out of nowhere and it was like basically talking about how, you got to let go of your past PRs because that'll prevent you from like finding new ones and pushing yourself in the future. And I really loved that. And this is actually, we're going to get to a point here. And then I was having a conversation with a coach at the gym who, he and his wife, I admire them so much. They coach our vitality class and I just think they're a beautiful couple. And seeing them come to the gym together and interact, and I don't, I know them well enough. I don't know every in and out of their personal life, but I imagine it's still pretty fantastic when they leave the walls of the gym. And I look at them, and one of the reasons I love them both so much is that I look at them as a couple, and it just excites me because Cassandra and I are young, and we're we got married in 2019, so we're 6 years into our marriage. We met in 2014, so we've known each other for a while, but we have so much time left, and sometimes that seems daunting. But also when I see this couple at the gym, I'm just so excited because I feel like, and maybe I've only known them for a handful of years. They've probably had ups and downs in their own individual lives, but I feel like they've just aged so well. And it looks like even at this age, they're having so much fun. And that's exciting for me because I think I've talked about this before too. One of my biggest fears when I was younger was getting older. I hated the concept of getting older. I kind of had this vision in my head that I would just get to 40 and drop dead. I hope it doesn't happen. Could still happen. I'm only 39. But, that was like something in my mind. Like I couldn't see a world that was interesting, enjoyable, appreciable after the age of 40. I just couldn't conceptualize, and I was terrified of getting older. And that's probably one of the greatest gifts that being around communities of fit people has given me, is realizing that there's just so much fun to be had at every year and around every corner in terms of yourself and getting older. But anyway, so I was talking to this fellow and he was saying, he asked me randomly, you want to take a picture with me? And he's very gracious. And he wanted to take a picture of me, and he was telling me he's coming up on his 1,000th class coached, and he wanted to celebrate that. And I thought to myself, I never count stuff like that. I mean, even when I was on seminar staff doing seminars, and they would do these announcements of like how many seminars you worked, I never wanted to know. I just keep rolling. I never want to know until I hit some really massive milestone, and I never ended up hitting the milestone I wanted to hit before I stepped away from seminars. But anyway, he told me he's coming up on his 1,000th class, and I said, "Wow!" I said, "That's awesome." And I said, "I've never counted anything like that." And he said, "Well, and he said this in a way that it wasn't nonchalant, but I wouldn't say that he said it in a way that was pessimistic. It was just very matter of fact." And it kind of took me by surprise, but he said, he said at my age, when he said, I like to count things. I like to measure things. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was essentially, I like to measure these things because, you're kind of like, he's got less years. He said, essentially I have less years in front of me than I do, behind me. And that was kind of the end of the conversation. Like we were just walking out of the gym together, and it kind of took me, I really thought about that. I was like, wow, what a wild thing to be aware of. And I don't know how comfortable he is or isn't with it. I don't think anybody is truly comfortable with that thought. But it made me think about how much, at his age and all the things he's accomplished in his life, his beautiful children, and they're going off and doing amazing, beautiful things, creating their own lives. And he's had a successful career, and he's just an absolutely wonderful wife, and he's coaching in the gym, and he's influencing people's lives in a positive way. And, but I don't know, just to have that awareness of one's own life, I think is interesting and took me back a little bit. And what it made me realize in context of everything we've been talking about here, getting older, letting go of your past PRs, creating new habits as you get older, maybe measuring, certain milestones more closely as you get older, was I do think what's really important as you age through CrossFit, I don't know if this can be applied to other areas of your life, is to continually create and chase new goals. And I think that's something that's, when I think about how poorly I've handled aging through my own fitness and my relationship with fitness, what has gotten me back on track and has definitely helped me appreciate it more and feel a deeper meaning to it, is continually, obtaining, chasing, assessing new goals. And assessing them in a framework of what's ahead, not what's behind. And some people might look at this and say, well, you're just being complacent. You're always moving the goalpost because you're not, if your PR or deadlift was, when you were competing was 500 plus pounds and, now you're like, I just want to deadlift 475. He's like, you're not really hitting a goal. And it's like, okay, that's fair. I get where you're coming from. A little bit of I think a pessimistic worldview, but I get it. Objectively, I get it. But what I think it's more, and maybe it's even new goals outside of the thing you used to be very, very focused on. Like, obviously, and he definitely has athletic goals too, but he really draws a lot of meaning out of coaching. It's an important part of his life. He puts a lot of effort into it. It's so for him to say, this is going to be my 1,000th class, I mean, that's an amazing milestone. And there'll be some other milestone. I think for myself, when it comes to fitness, I don't think it's necessary that I couldn't go back and beat some of my previous fitness PRs. I have done that. What I just really think about is like, is that what I'm going to do at my life right now? And I think if you're someone who's like unwilling to assign all of the effort to go back and beat one of your past goals, it's silly to both tie yourself to that goal, I think, and also walk around like that is actually your PR. So I've talked about this last week. So for example, go back to the deadlift. It's like, I truly believe that I could beat my previous deadlift PR from competing days. One, because I wasn't a terribly good deadlifter back then. But I don't think I'm going to assign the effort to go do that. So it's simultaneously silly for me to, assign half effort and chase that goal. It's also silly for me to walk around and say, well, I could say my lifetime best is 500 pounds, but like, what's my PR deadlift? I don't know. I recently hit like 460 something. So yeah, it's about 460. Let's call it that. I can't walk around and say, well, my PR deadlift is 500 pounds. Because I feel like when somebody asks you that, they're like talking about, well, what's recent, what's going on right now. So you got to let go of that if I want to chase something else. I don't know if that makes sense. So I do think the aging through CrossFit here is constantly setting new goals and chasing them. And I think for me, one of the biggest things and where I've handled this well is, I've found a little bit of an appreciation for longer endurance events. I talked a little bit about the Big Fish Foundation, things attached to that. That's a 30-hour event. I mean, through that, foundations of nonprofit supporting veterans, families. I've done 24-hour events, 30-hour events, longer than 30-hour events. Something that inspired me to go do the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. I've done some longer runs and rucks through that event. Not particularly long, but got up this morning, did a 2-hour max cal on the Echo bike. And I really appreciate that kind of stuff more. And it's been a whole area of fitness that I've never ever really dabbled in, and almost kind of despised going through my CrossFit days. I joked recently, I wish I loved running back during my CrossFit days as much as I did now. I would have been a much more formidable athlete, and competitive threat, but I didn't. And that's been something I think I've really appreciated. I still, I will probably train in some form of CrossFit methodology forever. But I've really embraced the other half of our methodology, which is, learn and play new sports regularly, like do other stuff than the CrossFit in the gym. And certainly I found so much enjoyment. I found more enjoyment in my fitness by doing that than just by only focusing on what's my next CrossFit PR? Still try hard in workouts, still have little goals there. And having really small specific goals. I think in the past it's gone from I want to PR such and such workout or such and such lift. And I've really, I used to joke when we were training, we'd do a heavy 10 rep. I'd be like, set a new 10 rep max. You do a heavy 8 rep, set a new 8 rep max. The running joke was your PRs, your maxes are 1, 2, and 3. That's it. No one says my 4 rep max, my 4 rep PR. But I actually think if you take that approach as you get older, it makes the aging through CrossFit a lot more interesting, right? Because it could be one for a long time was I want to be able to do Karen, which is 150 wall balls unbroken, max unbroken wall ball, that kind of stuff. And setting specific max rep goals or movement goals has made this journey certainly more enjoyable. I think the other thing that has helped me aging through CrossFit is I've paid a lot more attention on how the hell to take care of my body, aside from training. I've been much more interested in the little things of and I don't do these well. Let's set the record straight on that. But what I'm eating, what I'm drinking, sleeping, finally starting to consciously avoid the foods that, weaponize my butt hole. Make people not want to be in a confined space with me. Stop eating those foods. That kind of stuff. And I think that has also made it a lot more enjoyable as far as how to age through CrossFit. And I still haven't let go of the competitive stuff. It still annoys me when people beat me. Yeah. So I don't know if that'll ever go away. And I don't know how much that helps aging through CrossFit. This is something I want to talk about more. I should probably talk to other people who have aged through CrossFit and done this well. I will say is what has also helped me is changing my perspective. And I will say what changed my perspective on this is in 2021, I think I went and competed at the CrossFit Games as a Masters athlete. It was first year I was eligible to compete in the Masters division, went and competed in the Masters division, had a lot of mixed feelings about doing it, trying it. And I will say this, if I had to rank it against all my other years of competing, I think it was my favorite, which was really surprising to me. I didn't expect that. And the reason it was what was most surprising of it and what made it so good was how much the Masters community, the people there just embraced me to be a part of that tribe. They were excited to have somebody new be a part of their tribe, and going there and talking to people was really fun. And I was trying to sell a business at the time, and I was running a business at the time, another business at the time. And so like they were dealing with those problems too. And now we don't have kids, but listening to them deal with like how they navigate, their kids and what parts of their kids life that. And there were masters athletes who were retiring. And just the way they incorporated fitness into their lives was just so different than the way I had incorporated into my life when I was competing as not a masters athlete, when I was competing in my 20s. And I found that as like such a relief for some reason. It just gave me so much relief, made me so relaxed. Because I had felt so when I had felt so frustrated that I started putting other things in my life first over competitive fitness. And those masters athletes, they still make it a priority for sure. They make fitness a priority. But it was just such a relief to hear how they had, made a conscious choice to put other things like family first, or their business first, or work first, or whatever first. And fitness was still really important to them, but there were a lot of other competing things there. So the lesson I took from that is, aging through CrossFit, aging through your fitness, is don't freaking go it alone. And there's so many things in life that I think can be said for this, and don't go it alone in a way that is like you want to humble yourself as you go through this process. Share the ups and downs. With a like-minded group who are experiencing similar things. Share that you had a goal and you pushed really hard for it and you missed it and didn't make it. Don't just chalk it up to some excuse like, well, it's all because I'm older now. It's okay to say like, well, I tried really hard and I didn't get it, but I'm going to try again. Or do you have any advice on how to approach this? So that's another thing I would say is, don't go it alone. And, I think every once in a while I'll still try and chase and beat the young kids. And the other things I don't feel old. I don't know if I have a ton else to say on this, and I don't just want to ramble, but those were some big things I took away, was just, the counting and the creation and the chasing of new goals, I think is really, really, really important. And just accept, understand, and appreciate what you did when you were younger. And don't downplay what you accomplish now at any age, just because you're older. That's another thing I see happening here we go. That's another thing I see happening with athletes as they age, is they downplay their accomplishments. Because I don't know, just because they are older. And I think that's something, is the more I've appreciated both what I accomplished in the past and what I'm accomplishing in doing now, it's not, and people are gonna be like, well, it just sounds like complacency. It's not fucking complacency. But I think it's just, acknowledging what went well and that will allow you to acknowledge what didn't go well better. But yeah, don't downplay what happened, what accomplishments you make now. And also just appreciate what happened back then. I think it took me a long time to be able to say, a lot of the body and the fitness I have now and what it can do and how good I feel is due to the effort I put in when I was younger. So I'm grateful to my younger self for trying so fucking hard. I'm also grateful to my younger self for all the shit I ignored, like running and endurance events, because it's allowed me to explore them and appreciate them right now. And part of aging through CrossFit My Fitness has been looking back on like, okay, what's all the fitness stuff that I kind of ignored and didn't pay attention to, or could have done more of back then? Because you know what? I can do more of it right now. So that's it. That's the point. This was a good one. Really challenging. More to say here, but appreciate y'all, and talk to you soon.